If you want to better understand yourself and how to better interact with others, you need to understand your values. That's why the Minimalists created a free, downloadable, and printable values worksheet that will help you identify all of your different values and the obstacles that are in your way. Head on over to theminimalists.com/V to download your free values worksheet today. Enjoy.
The Minimalists.
How can we as parents help messy kids be less messy, aside from being an example ourselves?
I like that because the implicit question of this is like, don't tell me that I need to also be less messy or whatever.
Right.
And also what they're saying is, I get it. Yes, lead with your own behavior, but my kid is messy. Now what?
Yeah.
So we build that visual cortex. We build that visual processing system, the one that has to do with space. And we do that from the time they're very young. We show them black and white objects so they get a sense of dimension and space. And we, as they get older, we have them track moving objects, balloons that fall through the sky so that they're building that visual cortex. As they get older, we give everything a place. So with my 2-year-old, we had stations. This is where your balls go. This is where you eat your food. This is where we read stories. This is where you sleep. And we, in a sense, rotate them from one station to the next. But by doing that, they start to recognize that things have a location. Things have a space. As they get older, one of the pitfalls we fall into is we get our kids everything. And when you do that, it becomes almost impossible to recognize how to give everything a space. I like to recommend, having 5 or 10 toys out and everything else boxed up and put on the shelf. And if they're done, then they say, okay, we can clean up one of these and we can get out something else. So that they recognize that any task has a beginning, a middle, and an end. That's a different of the steps. Everything has an order: beginning, middle, and end. You play with the toy, you take out the toy, you play with the toy, you put away the toy. But you give everything a space. So they know where it is, they know how to clean up, and then they move on to the next thing. But if you have everything all over the place, they don't think about that. They just play, and then they're buried in, army men and dolls.
Overstimulated.
And it's really chaos in a way too, right? And so the stat is that the average kid has approaching 300 toys on average and plays with 12 weekly, and so or daily or whatever the stat is. But regardless, it's such a small portion of the overall, and yet it's easy for a kid especially to have all of that chaos strewn throughout their room, and of course you're going to feel overwhelmed amid chaos. And so if I look at this question differently, it's not about mess so much as it is about order.
And it's about taking the time to consciously think about, where am I going to put things? If I put my keys in a different pocket every time, I misplace them. I can't, oh my gosh, they're not here, right? When I was a kid, I used to lose my keys all the time when I started driving. I'd go play basketball with my friends. I'd leave it on the court, or I'd go to the beach, and I was ended up finding my keys somehow, but I lost them so much that I had a hanger that I used to put under the bumper of my car so I could make a little hook and break into my car, and I kept the spare key under the mat. And it worked.
Wow.
It was great.
Wow.
It was great until my friends at school realized that I used to do that. And then every day at lunch, they'd move my car. And after school, I was wandering around looking for my car. But after I got married, my wife put a basket by the door. I haven't lost my keys in 25 years. I come home, my keys go in that basket. It has a place.
Yeah. Now I know how to get into your car.
Well, you can't break in as easy as we used to be able to.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, when I think of Christian's question here, my brain goes to reward and consequence. And so what you've covered is like, how do you help your children set up boundaries? How do you kind of help them understand not to be messy? But there's a certain point where, maybe there needs to be a consequence, or maybe you entice them with a reward. Like, I guess overall, like, how do you feel about, consequence versus reward? When do you present consequences? When do you present the carrot? When do you present the stick?
But I think cleaning up at this age, I think, did they say 5 or a young child?
I don't think there was an age here. Yeah.
When they're young kids, it's really about teaching. It's about learning. It's not about consequences, because they don't recognize it as a value or an important thing. when we're done with something, we put it away. And then we do something else.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a lesson we teach. Oh, wait, you want something else?
Mm-hmm.
Let's clean up, and then we can all go to the park. That's the reward. The reward is inherent in the next thing that they get to do.
Yeah.
Now, if they're a 13-year-old and grandma is coming over and you say, I need your room cleaned by 3 o'clock, then, you're going to have to stay there until you get that thing cleaned up. You're not going out with your friends. You're not doing whatever until you get that done.
Oh, interesting. So what I'm hearing you say is, again, depending on the development stage, you offer the reward, which can be something as simple as just moving to the next thing, going to the park, eating dinner. Or if a 13-year-old, maybe there is some kind of consequence of, well, now you have to stay in your room until it's clean.
Yeah, it's not a punishment. It's
Right.
just the reality is this is the priority. It has to happen before you get to do those other before you go on the internet, before you use your phone. This is what has to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, each morning, Ella, and it's clockwork now. She brushes her teeth. She makes her bed. And she knows those two
She
things.
blow dries her hair.
And she gets dressed. and the funny thing is she loves wearing dresses. So she'll first thing she does, she gets up in the morning and she puts on a dress,
God love her.
brushes her teeth, makes her bed horribly, by the way.
Do you go in there and remake it every morning?
I yell at her and I say, you're never going to get into
This is
heaven."
horrible. You didn't do the dishes right last night. You didn't make your bed right this morning. No.
Look, this quarter does not bounce off the bed.
Oh, my goodness.
No, I always, as horrible as it looks every time, it's always hey, thank you so much for making your bed.
Yeah.
Great job.
Right.
Now, at some point, there will be, there'll be me showing her how to maybe improve that if she so desires. Because, by the way, making of the bed is simply my expectation. It's not going to help her live better necessarily. I know Jordan Peterson wants you to clean your room, and I want her to clean her room too. But, and I understand the psychology behind that. But it's important to realize that yes, making her bed, brushing her teeth, getting dressed in the morning, those things have to happen before she can do the things that she wants to do, which is always watching the Dragons videos.